Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Get ready for a wild ride. A story of soaring ambition, crushing betrayal, and a fight for redemption that'll keep you glued to your seats. Imagine a music prodigy chasing glory, a cunning temptress with a score to settle, and a pregnant wife who refuses to break. You won't believe the twists ahead, so hit play and dive in with us. In the shadowed sprawl of Detroit, where rusted dreams clashed with the hum of factory smokestacks, Lucas Harper was born, 36 years ago, in a sagging tenement where the walls groaned with despair. A boy with a restless spirit and a soul full of rhythm took his first breath. His mother, Lorraine, a diner waitress with tired eyes, sang Motown classics to hush the chaos of her shifts, her voice a lifeline in the gloom. His father, Ray, a mechanic whose hands bled oil and regret, came home late, if at all, haunted by a life that never lifted off. Lucas grew up watching Ray slump over beers, muttering about missed chances, a warning etched into his young mind. Failure was a trap waiting to swallow him, too. Music was his rebellion, his escape. As a toddler, he'd hammer on pots with splintered spoons, coaxing defiant beats from the clamor, his small hands trembling with a hunger he couldn't name. At 10, he scavenged a second-hand keyboard from a pawn shop, its keys yellowed but alive with promise. He'd sit by his cracked window, the wail of sirens weaving into his halting tunes, dreaming of a stage beyond the city's decay. Ray scoffed, "Music won't pay the bills, kid." But Lucas tuned him out, his fingers dancing faster, each note a vow to prove his father wrong, to never let failure claim him. School was a restless blur. Teachers snapped at him for drumming on desks, but Lucas was lost in his head, crafting melodies that drowned out their lectures. At 16, he met Darius Jones, a wiry kid with a quick laugh and a knack for lyrics, in a graffiti-streaked alley. Darius, who'd grown up bouncing between foster homes, saw the fire in Lucas and handed him a crumpled rap verse. "You make the beats, I'll spit the words," he grinned. They became brothers in sound, sneaking into dive bars to watch grizzled musicians bleed their souls into every chord, vowing to conquer the world together. At 18, with $200 scraped from washing dishes and a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, Lucas boarded a bus to Los Angeles, Darius's voice ringing in his ears. "Don't forget me when you're big, man." LA hit him like a fever dream, neon lights flashing, streets pulsing with raw ambition. He arrived in 2007, a scrappy dreamer with a chipped keyboard and a heart thundering with audacity. He crashed on floors, slung drinks in grimy bars, and begged for studio time, his gritty Detroit beats catching ears in a city of polished noise. Producers took notice, and soon his tracks crackled through underground clubs, a spark igniting his rise. In a haze of amplifiers and stale coffee, Lucas met Elna Brooks. She was 32 now, but back then, at 23, she was a whirlwind of grace, a bien jiao mua, with ocean blue eyes and a spirit that leaped even in stillness. Raised in Pasadena by teacher parents who prized art over wealth, Elena had come to LA to choreograph dreams into motion. She swept into Lucas's studio for a music video gig, her presence a jolt of light in the dim room. Their worlds collided, his relentless rhythms crashing into her fluid steps, and love bloomed fast, fierce, and fearless. Together, they forged a vision. Harper Studios, a haven where sound and movement fused into magic. Lucas's beats soared up the charts, Elena's choreography mesmerized millions, and their little dream exploded. By 2015, they'd swapped roach-infested apartments for a Malibu mansion, its glass walls shimmering against the Pacific. They married under a blazing sunset, vows whispered over crashing waves, promising to build a legacy that would outlast them. Darius, now a budding rapper, toasted them with cheap champagne, his grin wide. "You're living the dream, bro." In 2025, Lucas Harper was a titan, a producer whose touch turned raw talent into gold, Grammys crowding his shelves, his name blazing across LA's nightlife. But the higher he climbed, the deeper the shadow of Ray's failure loomed, a gnawing fear that one wrong move could drag him back to Detroit's dust. The pressure was relentless. Every hit had to top the last. Every deal had to dazzle. Sleepless nights bled into frantic days, and the spark that once fueled him flickered under the weight of expectation. Elena, 8 months pregnant, was his rock. She'd eased off choreography, her hands sketching nursery plans, her laughter a balm against his strain. She still believed in their studio, in the dream they'd nursed from nothing. But Lucas was slipping. The roar of applause, the flash of fame. It was a drug, pulling him from the woman who'd anchored his rise. Darius noticed, ribbing him over beers. "Don't let the lights blind you, man. You've got too much to lose." Lucas laughed it off, but the words lingered, a faint echo he ignored. As dusk painted the ocean gold, Lucas stood on their balcony, the waves a restless murmur below. His empire gleamed, his name untouchable, or so he thought. Beneath the surface, a tempest brewed, one that would test every vow he'd made, every dream he'd chased. The boy who'd sworn to outrun failure was about to face a reckoning, and the stage was set for a fall he couldn't foresee. The Malibu mansion shimmered under a molten sunset, its glass walls catching the fiery dance of the Pacific waves. Inside, Lucas Harper, 36, hunched over a mixing board, his latest track, a throbbing anthem vibrating through the air. He was a titan at the peak of his game, a producer whose beats ruled LA's nightlife, but the shadow of his father's failure clung to him like rust. Ray's bitter voice echoed in his mind. "You'll end up like me, kid, broke and forgotten." Lucas gritted his teeth, pushing the faders harder, desperate to drown out that fear with sound. Fame was his shield, but it was cracking. Harper Studios buzzed with life, a testament to the dream he'd built with Elena Brooks, his wife of 10 years. At 8 months pregnant, she glowed with a quiet strength. Her choreography sketches now traded for nursery designs. Their legacy thrived. Hits climbing charts, videos racking up millions of views. But Lucas craved more. He wasn't just running from Ray's ghost. He was chasing a throne, a legacy so unshakable that failure could never touch him. That hunger left him vulnerable, a crack Vanessa Cole would soon exploit. She stormed into his world like a tempest. Vanessa, 27, was a Kayasikiem Ngoimao, with a voice that dripped with dark honey and eyes that burned with unspoken scars. She'd clawed her way from San Diego's gritty open mics, where industry suits had dismissed her as too raw, too reckless. One producer had sneered, "Stick to modeling, sweetheart," and the rejection had festered, forging her ambition into a jagged blade. She'd vowed to prove them wrong, to seize the spotlight they'd denied her, and Lucas was her ticket. At an industry mixer, she zeroed in on him, her emerald dress a bold slash against the crowd, her demo pressed into his hand with a sultry dare. "You make stars, Harper, make me one." Lucas couldn't look away. Her demo, gritty, unrefined, but pulsing with defiance, struck a chord deep within him, echoing his own Detroit days. He signed her on the spot, and soon she was in his studio, her vocals weaving through his beats like smoke through steel. She was electric, her energy a live wire that jolted him awake. Late-night sessions stretched into dawn, their creative fire blazing, and Lucas felt a thrill he hadn't known since his scrappy beginnings. Elena smiled from the sidelines, trusting his passion, her presence a gentle hum against Vanessa's blazing roar. But Vanessa saw the fault lines in Lucas's armor, the exhaustion in his eyes, the fear of fading Ray had planted. One sticky August night, as the studio hummed and the ocean growled outside, she struck. Leaning close, her breath hot against his ear, she whispered, "You're bigger than this, Lucas. This studio's a leash, keeping you tethered when you could soar." Her words slithered into his mind, stirring the panic he'd buried. "Sell it to Titan Entertainment," she urged, her voice a velvet trap. "They'll pay millions. You'll be free. Free from the grind, free to be a legend." The idea hit him like a freight train. Titan, a behemoth swallowing studios whole, offered a way out, millions in his pocket, a chance to escape the relentless churn and prove Ray wrong forever. Selling meant wealth, power, a name etched in gold. But the studio was Elena's too, her choreography its heartbeat, her dreams its soul. Betraying her would gut her, Yet Vanessa's vision dazzled him. Private jets, global tours, a legacy beyond Detroit's dust. You'd be untouchable, she pressed, her fingers grazing his arm, igniting a shiver he couldn't shake. And I'd be right there with you, your muse, your star. Lucas's resolve wavered, Ray's ghost whispering, "Don't choke now." He didn't tell Elena, not that night, not the next. Instead, he let Vanessa's poison seep in, her presence growing bolder. She'd linger after sessions, her laughter a seductive echo, her touch brushing his skin with deliberate intent. Guilt clawed at him, a dull ache he smothered with ambition. He'd catch Elena's radiant smile, her hand on her belly, and feel a stab of shame, only to bury it in the next beat. Vanessa wasn't just a collaborator. She was a mirror to his buried fears, a siren calling him to the edge. Darius Jones saw it coming. Over beers at a dive bar, the rapper, Lucas's oldest friend, leaned in, his voice low. "You're slipping, man. That chick's got you twisted. What's Elena gonna say when she finds out you're even thinking about selling?" Lucas bristled, downing his drink. "It's business, Darius. I'm securing our future. Hers, the kids." Darius shook his head, his eyes sharp. "Bullshit. You're chasing ghosts, not a future. Don't torch what you've built." The words stung, but Lucas waved them off, his mind already racing with Titan's millions. Elena felt the drift, a quiet unease settling in her bones. She'd catch Lucas staring into space, his hands restless, his answers clipped. "You okay?" she'd ask, her voice soft but piercing. He'd flash a hollow grin. "Just tired, babe. Big moves ahead." She nodded, her trust a fragile thread he didn't deserve. At 8 months, she was a pillar of resilience, her sketches for Lila's nursery a silent hymn to their shared past. But that past was slipping, and she couldn't name why. Vanessa tightened her grip. Over martinis at a rooftop lounge, the LA skyline glittering below, she laid out the plan. "Titan's meeting us next week," she said, her eyes gleaming with a victor's pride. 15 million, Lucas. All you do is nod, and you're king." Her confidence was a drug, her scars fueling a hunger that matched his own. She leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. "This is your shot. Ours. Don't let it fade." Lucas felt the earth tilt, Ray's voice snarling. "Don't fail like me." He nodded, his throat dry. "Set it up," he muttered, surrendering to the abyss. Vanessa's smile was a predator's glee, her past rejection now a weapon turned on him. The deal raced forward, secret calls, encrypted emails, a web of lies spun behind Elena's back. He told himself it was for their family, but deep down, he knew. He was running from failure, chasing a crown, and Vanessa was the flame luring him to ruin. As the Titan meeting loomed, Lucas stood in the studio, gold records glinting like mocking eyes. Each bore his name and Elena's. Her spirit pulsed in every corner, her trust a thread he was ready to snap. Darius's warning rang faint, drowned by Vanessa's siren call. The ocean roared outside, a restless omen he ignored. The stage was set, the collision brewing, and the woman who'd built his world was about to face the wreckage of his choices. The Grand Music Awards glittered like a fevered dream, a dazzling explosion of light and sound engulfing the Dolby Theater in downtown Los Angeles. The air crackled with electric anticipation, a night where stars ascended and legends were forged. For Lucas Harper, 36, it was his moment of triumph, a stage to unveil his deal with Titan Entertainment, a seismic shift that would crown him king of the music world. But beneath the polished veneer, a storm was brewing, one that would shatter his empire and expose the man he'd become. The theater pulsed with frenetic glamour, sequined gowns shimmering, tuxedos cutting sharp lines, chandeliers casting a golden haze over the elite. Lucas strode through the chaos, his navy suit a perfect fit, his cufflinks flashing like tiny beacons. Beside him was Vanessa Cole, 27, a vision in scarlet, her gown clinging to her like a second skin, her raven hair cascading with calculated allure. Her eyes gleamed with a victor's pride, her past rejections fueling a hunger to claim this night as hers. She whispered to Lucas, her voice a sultry blade, "Titans in the front row, we've got this." He nodded, his jaw tight, the weight of his secret pressing against his chest. Backstage, the air buzzed with urgency. Lucas adjusted his tie, his pulse hammering with adrenaline and dread. Vanessa hovered close, her perfume a dizzying swirl of jasmine and menace. "Nail this, and we're untouchable," she purred, her confidence unshaken. Lucas forced a grin, his mind racing with the $15 million offer. A lifeline to escape his father's ghost. Ray's voice snarling, "Don't choke now." He'd hidden it from Elena, his pregnant wife, convincing himself it was for their future. The lie burned like acid, but he stepped toward the stage as the host's voice boomed. "Give it up for the genius behind this year's biggest hits, Lucas Harper." The crowd roared, a tidal wave of applause crashing over him as he climbed the steps. The spotlight blazed, searing his skin, and he flashed a practiced smile, masking the tremor in his gut. The teleprompter glowed with his speech, a glossy tale of his rise from Detroit's grit to LA's glory, but tonight was about power, not past. "Thank you," he began, his voice steady. "Tonight, I'm proud to announce a new era for Harper Studios." A sharp gasp sliced through the din, the crowd twisting toward the aisle. Lucas faltered, his words dying as he followed their gaze. Elena Brooks, 32, 8 months pregnant, emerged from the shadows, her black dress flowing like a storm cloud, her face a mask of blazing resolve. The theater plunged into a thunderous silence, her presence a sledgehammer to the night's fragile sheen. Lucas's heart plummeted, ice flooding his veins. She'd found out. An email he'd left open. A careless slip that bared his betrayal. Harper Studios sold for $15 million effective post-announcement. Elna had discovered it that afternoon, the words slicing through her like a knife. She'd sat frozen in their Malibu office, her belly kicking as rage and heartbreak collided. She'd driven to the Dolby, her hands trembling, her mind a furnace of fury and purpose. Now she advanced, each step a testament to her unyielding strength, the crowd parting like a sea before her. Lucas croaked, "Elena, what?" But she cut him off, her voice ringing out, sharp and unbreaking. "Don't you dare!" The microphone caught it, broadcasting her wrath to millions. Vanessa stiffened, her scarlet glow dimming, her eyes darting like a cornered animal's. Elena climbed the stage, her belly a silent defiance, and faced Lucas, tears glinting but held back. "You're selling our studio," she said, her tone a blade of ice. "Our dream, mine as much as yours, and you hid it from me." The accusation detonated, the audience gasping in unison. Phones flashed, cameras whirred, the scandal unfurling in real time. Lucas stammered, "Elena, this isn't—" But she stepped closer, her gaze a wildfire. "It's exactly the place. You wanted glory? Let them see the cost." She turned to the crowd, her voice rising, raw and relentless. "This man, my husband, promised me a legacy. Instead, he sold it to Titan for $15 million. With her—" She thrust a finger at Vanessa, whose face blanched. "Feeding him lies. He traded our soul for cash and a crown." The theater erupted, a cacophony of shock and delight. Vanessa's hand twitched toward her clutch, a flicker of defiance sparking. She'd prepared a backup, a leaked demo to spin the narrative if this unraveled. But Elena's next words crushed her. "You're not his muse, Vanessa. You're his poison." The host scrambled forward, mic wavering. Let's take a break." But Elena snatched it, her grip iron. "No breaks," she snapped, her voice trembling with anguish and power. "He thought he could erase me, erase us, for this?" She glared at Lucas, who shrank under her fury. "You're no king. You're a coward who ran from his own shadow." Tears broke free, streaking her cheeks, but she stood tall, her belly a shield and a sword. "I'm done." The crowd was a frenzy, some jeering, others awestruck. Darius Jones, watching from the wings, shook his head, his voice low to a stagehand. Man sold his soul and didn't even see it coming. Titans execs shifted in their seats, faces darkening as their gamble imploded. Lucas's knees buckled, his pride disintegrating. Elna, he choked, but she silenced him with a look, dropping the mic with a deafening thud. She turned, walking off stage, her silhouette a beacon of unbroken will. Vanessa lunged forward, her voice a desperate hiss. Lucas, say something! Spin it! She clutched her phone, ready to leak the demo, to claw back control, but he shoved her hand away, his eyes locked on Elena's retreat. It's over, he rasped, his voice a hollow shell. Vanessa froze, her plan crumbling, her past rejections roaring back. She'd gambled on him and lost again. She hissed, You'll regret this, and stormed off, her scarlet figure swallowed by the shadows, her threat lingering like smoke. The cameras rolled, the live stream ablaze with comments. Queen Elena! Harper's toast! She just ended him. Lucas stood alone, the spotlight a merciless judge, the crowd's murmurs swelling into a deafening roar. Darius stepped closer, his face grim. Told you, bro, you torched it all. Lucas didn't respond, his hands trembling, his empire reduced to rubble. The boy who'd fled Detroit's failure was now its prisoner, his betrayal bared for the world to judge. Elena's exit was a thunderclap, her strength a rallying cry echoing beyond the theater. Lucas, once untouchable, was a broken man, his crown shattered, his lies exposed. Vanessa's parting threat hung in the air, a dark promise of chaos yet to unfold. The night he'd envisioned as his ascension had become his ruin, and the woman he'd betrayed had turned the stage into his reckoning. The Dolby Theater's golden glow dissolved into a cold gray dawn. The Grand Music Awards, a fading echo swallowed by Los Angeles's relentless hum. Lucas Harper, 36, stood backstage, his navy suit crumpled, his once iron confidence reduced to dust. Elena's mic drop still rang in his ears, her words a relentless lash. You threw it away! The live stream had erupted, millions tearing into his betrayal, his humiliation a viral wound bleeding across the internet. The titan of music was a broken man, and the fallout was only beginning. Vanessa Cole, 27, had vanished into the night, her scarlet gown a fleeting ghost. But her parting threat, you'll regret this, wasn't empty. By morning, she struck back, leaking a doctored audio clip online. Lucas's voice twisted to sound like he'd mocked Elena's talent, calling her a liability. It was a lie born from her own rejection-scarred fury, a desperate bid to claw back power. The internet pounced, hashtags like Saw Lucas, the snake trending, but her gambit backfired. Fans who'd seen Elena's raw strength at the awards called it out as fake, and Vanessa's name sank deeper into the mud, her star extinguished by her own venom. The damage to Lucas was cataclysmic. Titan Entertainment yanked their offer within hours, their email a curt execution. Deals off, reputation risk too high. Sour. Harper Studios teetered, artists bailing, sponsors fleeing, the phone once alive with praise now a silent tomb. The Malibu mansion loomed like a hollow mausoleum, its glass walls reflecting a man stripped bare. Darius Jones, Lucas's oldest friend, showed up uninvited, his face grim. You fucked up, bro, he said, tossing a beer across the kitchen island. Told you she was trouble. Now what? Lucas stared at the can, his voice a rasp. I don't know. Elena had fled to Santa Monica, crashing at her friend Mia's loft. 8 months pregnant, she curled on the couch, her hands cradling her belly as Lila kicked, a lifeline amid the wreckage. The betrayal gnawed at her. Lucas selling their studio, their dream, for Vanessa's glittering lies. She'd trusted him, built a life with him, only to be discarded. Mia, a sharp-tongued dancer who'd known Elena since college, sat beside her, pouring tea. He's trash, Elle. You're better off without him. Elena's eyes welled, her voice cracking. I hate him, Mia. But I still love him. How stupid is that? Mia sighed, squeezing her hand. Not stupid. Messed up, but not stupid. What's your next move? Elena shook her head, torn. I don't know. Lila needs a father, but does he deserve her? Lucas spiraled alone, the mansion's silence a crushing weight. He paced past gold records, each one a mocking relic of what he'd lost. Ray's voice haunted him. You'll end up like me. Guilt clawed his chest, a ravenous beast devouring his pride. He'd run from failure, seduced by Vanessa's promise of invincibility, and torched everything: Elena, their studio, their family. Darius crashed on the couch, refusing to leave. You're a mess, man, he said one night, strumming a guitar. But you're not Ray. Fight for her. Lucas buried his face in his hands, tears seeping through. She hates me. Darius shrugged. Maybe, but hate's better than nothing. C'est ça. Vanessa's stunt lit a fire under the chaos. Blogs ran wild with the fake audio, but as it unraveled, Lucas saw a sliver of truth. He'd let her poison him, but he'd lit the match. One stormy night, thunder rattling the mansion, he stumbled into the studio. The space was a shrine to their past. Mixing boards he'd slaved over, dance floors Elena had claimed. He sank into a chair, clutching a photo of them. Him grinning, her mid-twirl, their joy untainted. I'm sorry, he whispered, sobs wrenching free, a dam breaking under the weight of regret. That night, clarity pierced the haze. He emailed Titan. Deal's dead, studio's mine. Sending it cost him millions, his fortune gutted. But it was a lifeline, a shred of honor reclaimed. Darius clapped his shoulder. First smart move in months. Lucas drove to Santa Monica through slashing rain, his heart pounding. Mia answered, her glare venomous. She's not ready. Please, he cut in, drenched and desperate. Just tell her. Mia relented, and Elena appeared, her face pale, her eyes a storm of hurt and resolve. What, Lucas? She demanded, arms crossed over her belly. He stepped forward, rain dripping, his voice raw. I killed the deal. Titan's gone. I was wrong, terrified of failing like my dad, chasing something I didn't need. Vanessa fed it, but I chose it. I lost you, and I'll never forgive myself. Tears mixed with rain, his plea breaking. I'm begging. For you, for Lila, let me try. Elena's gaze bore into him, searching the wreckage for the man she'd loved. You shattered me, she said, her voice trembling. I gave you everything, and you sold it. She paused, Lila kicking, a silent tether. Go. I can't. Not yet. He nodded, retreating, but days later, Elena's resolve wavered. Alone with Mia, she confessed, he's fighting for it. Canceled the deal, lost millions. I saw it in his eyes. He's broken too. Mia frowned. So what? He earned that. Elena sighed, rubbing her belly. Lila's coming soon. She deserves both of us, even if it's messy. Mia softened. Your call, Elle. Just don't let him off easy. That night, Elena texted Lucas. Hospital tomorrow. Be there. It wasn't forgiveness, but a crack in the wall, a chance born of Lila's imminent arrival. The scandal faded, Vanessa's flop burying her deeper, her threats empty against Elena's truth. Lucas sat in the mansion, Darius strumming nearby, a quiet lifeline. He'd lost his shine, his wealth slashed, but gained a flicker of purpose, not fame, but family. The studio stood dark, a promise he'd rebuild, not for glory, but for them. The road ahead was jagged, his sins heavy, but Lucas Harper, humbled and raw, was ready to face it, starting with the call that would change everything. Los Angeles shimmered under a fragile dawn, the city's restless pulse softened by a veil of mist. Weeks had crawled by since the Grand Music Awards, since Elena Brooks, 32, had left Lucas Harper, 36, drowning in the ashes of his betrayal. The Malibu mansion stood quiet, its glass walls fogged with the ocean's breath, a relic of a fractured past. But beneath the stillness, a tender hope flickered. Not a blazing redemption, but a slow, bruising effort to mend what he'd broken. Elena had stayed in Santa Monica, her friend Mia's loft a refuge from the storm. 9 months pregnant, she cradled her belly, Lila's kicks a steady rhythm against her grief. Lucas's confession in the rain haunted her, his raw plea, his canceled Titan deal, and her heart warred with itself. She wanted to bury him in the pain he'd sown, yet a stubborn thread of love lingered, frayed but unbroken. Mia watched her wrestle with it, her voice sharp one night over tea. "He's groveling, Elle. Doesn't mean he's earned you back." Elena sighed, her eyes distant. "I know. But Lila's here now. I can't erase him, for her." Lucas fought to prove himself, his empire humbled, his fortune slashed. He'd poured his soul into Harper Studios, begging old artists to return, crafting beats that bled with regret. But the first attempt crashed. 2 key clients bailed, spooked by the scandal's stench, leaving him reeling. Darius Jones, his ride or die from Detroit, found him slumped in the studio, head in hands. "You're pushing too hard, bro," Darius said, strumming a guitar. "It's not gonna fix overnight." Lucas's voice cracked. "I've got nothing left if I don't try." Darius nodded, soft but firm. "Then keep trying, she's watching." The call came on an October morning, mist cloaking the coast. Elna's voice trembled through the phone. "It's time." Lucas sped from Malibu, tires cutting through fog, his chest tight with fear and longing. At the hospital, he found her in labor, her face etched with pain and fierce resolve. She didn't push him away. She clutched his hand, her grip a lifeline as contractions tore through her. Hours later, Lila's cry shattered the silence, a tiny wail that stitched their broken threads. The nurse laid her in Elena's arms, a wrinkled miracle with Lucas's dark eyes, and tears spilled, radiant and raw. "Lila," Elena whispered, naming her for strength. Lucas sobbed beside her, undone. "She's everything," he choked, touching her tiny hand. They returned to the mansion, not as a couple, but as parents bound by Lila. Lucas slept in the guest room, his every move tentative, a quiet offering of penance. He rocked Lila through sleepless nights, humming Detroit lullabies, his voice a balm. He burned toast, fumbled bottles, earning a faint, weary smile from Elena as she nursed by the fire. Words were scarce, but the silence softened, a fragile truce settling in. Therapy became their battleground, Lucas bearing his terror of failure, Ray's ghost driving his fall, Elena spilling her loneliness, the sting of his secrecy. "I needed you," she said, her voice a quiet wound. "And you ran." He bowed his head, shame heavy. "I'll never run again." The studio limped forward, a wounded phoenix. Lucas hustled, but setbacks stung. Another artist pulled out, funding dried up. Darius stepped in, cutting a track with him, his rap a gritty lifeline. "We'll get it back, man," he vowed, and slowly they did. Small gigs trickled in, a flicker of life returning. Elena joined one day, Lila in a sling, her choreography sketches hesitant but alive. Her steps were slower, her trust a cracked shell, but she moved with him, their rhythm a cautious echo of the past. Lila's giggles filled the space, a bridge over their scars. One twilight, as the Pacific burned gold, Lucas found Elena on the balcony, Lila asleep against her chest. He stood beside her, the air thick with unspoken weight. "I see you fighting," she said, her voice low, her gaze on the waves. "The studio's slipping, but you're still here. It's not enough, yet, but I see it." Lucas exhaled, a tremor of relief shaking him. "I know I've got miles to go," he said, earnest and bruised. "I lost myself, Elena, chasing Ray's ghost, not our dream. I'll keep proving it, for her, for you." Elena turned, her eyes tracing his, searching for the dreamer who'd swept her away, battling the traitor who'd torn her apart. She saw both, tangled and flawed, and her heart ached with the mess of it. "Lila binds us," she said, her tone steady but soft. "I can't trust you, not fully, not now. But I won't shut you out. We'll raise her together, one day at a time." He nodded, tears brimming, his hand hovering near hers. She didn't take it, but she didn't pull away. A fragile space opening between them. The mansion glowed in the fading light, a tentative peace settling over its walls. Lucas and Elena stood there, the ocean stretching vast and wild before them. Their love was a scarred thing, their trust a seedling in cracked earth. But Lila held them, a radiant tether through the pain. The studio flickered on, Darius's beats humming faintly, a promise they'd rebuild, not for fame, but for family. The future hung open, a melody unwritten, but hope shimmered. A quiet, enduring flame forged in the fire of their fall. And there you have it, folks, an epic tale of heartbreak and hope. Thanks for riding this roller coaster with us. You're the real MVPs. What do you think? Can Lucas and Elena rebuild? Drop your thoughts below, and if you love this story, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. See you next time. Stay awesome.